Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of my top 20 notes from the 20th century. Just a reminder, Ontario 100 was the one who suggested this list. He wanted to see the top 10 notes, and well, this week you're gonna see those top 10, but when I was trying to put the list together, there was no way I could narrow it down to only 10. So, once again, here's Ontario 100's page. If you haven't subscribed to him and if you haven't checked him out, please go check him out. Great guy, great stuff on there. Tell him I sent you, tell him I said hi. And with that, we are going to kick it off with the top 10 notes from the 20th century. As I said in the previous, when I first went through my stuff, I found well over 30 notes that would qualify. I tried to narrow it down as best as I could. I was able to get it down to 20 or so. And on occasion, I doubled them up, as in with my top 10, my number 10 note. My number 10 note is a pair of notes. These are both the $5 emergency notes from World War II. The $5 emergency notes, you've got the one from Hawaii, which has got the brown insignia here, and you've got the North Africa note. North Africa uses the yellow seal. North Africa is a silver certificate, so you've got the blue 5, you have the blue numbers here. The $5 Hawaii note is a Federal Reserve note, so they use the brown lettering, the same brown lettering that they use there. The Hawaii note, of course, has Hawaii written on the back and Hawaii written in fine print here. And the North Africa note, nowhere on this bill does it actually say North Africa. So if you didn't know that the yellow seal represented North Africa, then you just think you had a funny bill. Anyway, the emergency currency notes, these were both produced for World War II, one in the Pacific, one in the Atlantic. They're definitely a must-have for any paper money collector, especially when you're talking about 20th century notes. So I put these two together to make sure that they both were considered, and they are number 10 on the list. Number 9 went with a slightly bigger note. This is the 1923 $10 gold certificate. I always found the $10 gold certificates neat because usually when you're talking about gold certificates, you're talking in denominations of 20 or higher. The $10 note is the smallest denomination you're going to get, which means if you're looking to add a gold certificate to your collection, a $10 note is the way to go. It's definitely going to be the cheaper route. The $10 gold certificate, this is from 1923. The large size notes use this orange/gold ink on the back to designate them as gold certificates, whereas the small size notes just use the standard green. So when it comes to gold certificates, once again, if you don't have one, this is a great way to start off because you get a gold certificate and you get a large size note all wrapped up in one. And for the $10 one, the price is not out of range for most people. So that's number 9 on my list. Number 8. Number 8, we're going with a $5 silver certificate. This particular $5 silver certificate you can see is from 1923. This is known as the porthole note. The porthole featuring Abraham Lincoln, of course. $5 silver certificate. It's neat that it actually says $5 silver on there. There wasn't a time that they actually said $5 silver or $5 in silver coin, something to that effect. So by saying $5 silver, that of course is a designation that it's a silver certificate. The blue seal there, the blue numbers here, the blue serial number also tells of the silver certificate. Taking a look at the back. This whole series has a bunch of similar backs and alludes to other things that are coming as well. So this is the $5 1923 silver certificate known as the porthole note. Not one that I have yet, but it's on my list to get. Number 7. Number 7 is the $20 small size gold certificate. This is from 1928. 1928 was the first year for small sized notes, and it was the last year that they made gold certificates. This one here is the $20 gold certificate. I believe the $10 gold certificate made it into the top 20. The $20 gold certificate, you can see right here, series of 1928, and this certificate is legal tender in the amount thereof in payment of all debts and dues, public and private. The gold certificate has the gold serial numbers on there, but if you were to take a look at the back of the note is indistinguishable from any other $20 bill at the time. Now, the gold certificates were redeemable in gold, and they were backed by gold. That's the important thing with these. They were backed by gold compared to Federal Reserve notes that said they were redeemable in gold, but they weren't backed by anything. They said they were redeemable in gold because we had $20 gold coins, we had $10 gold coins, and yeah, you could cash this in for gold coins if you wanted to, but those were not backed by gold. They were simply used in place of gold, where this was backed by gold. So that is the next one on this. What was that? 10, 9, 8, 7. That was number 7. Let's check out number 6. Prices are going to start getting up there. Number 6 on the list, right? That's what I said. 10, 9, 8, 7. Yep, number 6. I've got my 1918 Federal Reserve banknote. This is a $2 Federal Reserve banknote featuring Thomas Jefferson, of course. Federal Reserve banknote, at a glance, looks like a silver certificate because you've got the blue serial numbers and the blue stamp there. However, this is a Federal Reserve banknote. This was guaranteed by the Federal Reserve Bank, this particular one by the Federal Reserve of Boston. And what makes this note so collectible is what they put on the back. You can see the back of this note is a World War I battleship. World War I battleship. This one is the USS New York, is what everyone was telling me. The USS New York is featured on the $2 Federal Reserve note. That gives this one the title of the battleship note, one of the most collectible notes from the 20th century. Easily a note that belongs in any collector's collection, of course. Just such a cool note. When you start thinking of notes with names, the battleship from the 20th century is one of the notes that comes to mind right away. So definitely a note you should have in your collection. Number 5. Number 5 on the list. Small in size, big in price. This is my 1934 $500 bill. $500 Federal Reserve note from 1934. This particular one does have the light green seal. They made the light green and the dark green seals. They didn't make very many notes at all, so I mean, this one starts off with 3 zeros on the serial number, so it's a fairly low number, but like I said, they didn't make a ton of these. The $500 Federal Reserve note, this particular one is from 1934. I believe they made 1934 and 1934A, and then starting in 1969, they started recalling all these notes. Anytime a bank got any of the large denomination notes, they were removed from circulation. Nowadays, yes, I can spend this because it is a Federal Reserve note, but it's worth much more than face value, so I won't be doing that. It does feature President McKinley on the front, and if we check out the back, these notes were available to the public, but there wasn't really a lot that people were buying with $500 in 1928. So for the most part, these were just to move money from one bank to another. That's why the backs of this bill is not that, well, I don't want to say it's not that impressive, but it's just text and numbers for the most part. That is the 1934 $500 bill. Number 4 on the list, going back to the large size notes, this is my $10 1901 legal tender. Features Lewis and Clark, also known as the Bison note. A Bison note from 1901, just squeaked in there as a 20th century note. 1901 is the 20th century. The red ink, the red seal, the red numbers, all let you know that this is a legal tender note, not a silver certificate. Once again, has a bison, not a buffalo. No such thing as a buffalo in the North. There are no North American buffalo. They are North American bison. Back of this note right there, I love, especially on clean bills, when you get the bright white big areas like that, it lets you see the threads come through on the paper to make sure that you know that the anti-counterfeiting measures, the red and blue threads that they've been using since 1862, if I recall. One of the interesting things I find on this note is the lack of a border. It's just the engraving all the way to the edge, and if the bill is not in the best of shape, this would make it look like the bill is almost jagged at the side. You'll see that on lesser condition bills. This one, of course, is just my replica. I've got the real deal sitting in the safety deposit box. But anyway, this one still makes it as number 4 on the list. The 1901 Bison note, $10 legal tender. Number 3, I debated on this one for a long time. This is actually one of my favorite notes overall. This is the note that got me into collecting currency. It is a $20 1922 gold certificate. To me, this imagery for the border is just classic American currency. Seeing George Washington on a $20 bill threw me the first time I saw it. My brain couldn't comprehend that. And then I noticed you've got the gold and the gold seal, and you got in big letters "in gold coin" on the bottom. And after seeing this bill for the first time, I was hooked on U.S. currency. So in another world, this may have been my number 1, but I think I still made some cool choices. The 1922 $20 gold certificate, the last of the large size notes. You can see they used the orange/gold ink on the back of this one as well. So it is very prominent. You're not going to lose this one in a stack of 20s. Redeemable, of course, for a $20 gold coin, and it was backed by gold as well. For every one of these notes that was floating around, there was $20 worth of gold in a Fort Knox type state safe, just to make sure that all of this stuff was redeemable, because they cared about backing our money. So 1922 $20 large size gold certificate, one of my favorite notes. Number two on my list, this note I undervalued because of a personal incident that happened the first time I ever showed one of these, and this note has grown on me quite a bit, so I'm putting it in the number 2 spot here. This is my 1923 $10 bill, the $10 legal tender. You can see the red seals on there to make sure that that's a legal tender note. The $10 1923 legal tender features Andrew Jackson on it, and it is known as the poker chip. It is known as the poker chip for the back. You can see the rays coming out of the 10s on both sides look like poker chips, and that's how it got its nickname. The very first time I ever saw one of these up front, the seller pointed out that these were poker chip notes. This was called the poker chip, and he kept going, "It's a poker chip note." And I thought he was referring to this seal as the poker chip the first time I saw it. And he never turned the note over to explain why it was called a poker chip. So my first experience with this was a dealer who was more interested in getting me money than telling me anything about the note itself. And when I did try to buy some stuff, he pulled some shenanigans. So that's why this note had never stood out as much as it probably should to me. But I have grown to love this note, the 1923 $10 legal tender poker chip note. Once again, taking a look at the back to see those poker chips. Really cool note to have. That is number 2 on the list. So what does that leave us with? Any guesses? Anything I missed? Anything you thought should be up there that hasn't been? Well, what did I decide on number 1? I went with the note that has the most views on my channel for the most part. This is a 1934A $1,000 bill. Real deal $1,000 bill. 1934A. This note and the $500 bill are some of the most popular notes that you're ever going to see. When you first see one, if you are a collector, you are amazed that something like this could exist. If you didn't know that they existed, a lot of people think that these were fake. But no, these were the real deal. They started taking these out with the $500 bill in 1969. But to have one of these, they just aren't that, well, they're not extremely rare. They're just extremely pricey. And that scares a lot of people off from buying one of these, which is why I am so proud to be the owner of this particular one. So many people are stunned when they see it because they've never had the opportunity to see one. The $500 bill is fairly common compared to this one. So a lot of people have seen the $500 bill and they've heard of the 1,000, but they've never actually been able to get their hands on a $1,000 bill. So when it came to the top notes of the 20th century, I went out to find one of these, so I know how much demand there is for one of these. I enjoy this note. I enjoy seeing people's expressions when I bring out this note, even if I bring it to a bank, if I have it when friends come over. It's always the note that everybody wants to see. The $1,000 bill. This one is the 1934A. To me, it is easily the top note of the 20th century. It's a note that you can find. It's a note you can add to your collection. It's going to cost you a little bit, but it's worth it. There you have it. My full top 20 list of notes from the 20th century. If you agree with my list, go ahead and give me a like. If you think that I got one of them wrong or a couple of them wrong, leave me a comment. Tell me what you think that I should have done differently. If you have an idea for a list, please leave a comment. And if I use your idea for a list, I will put your name front and center like I did with Ontario, and I will show your YouTube page as well. Thanks everyone for watching. This was really fun to put together. A little stressful because, well, there's a lot of choices to be made, but hopefully I did it justice. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you again next week.